Welcome everyone to this episode of Downloadable Content. I'm Brian, and with me we have a rather large panel for this second part of our Final Fantasy retrospective. We have Shanna.
Hello.
Ron.
Hi everyone.
Ronnie.
Great to see everyone again.
And our newcomer. We have a newcomer. We have Andy. Welcome aboard.
Nice to meet y'all.
Welcome to the Madcap Madness that is Downloadable Content. I hope you don't end up getting too battered and bruised.
I can hold my own, hopefully.
I think you can. If you've got a good enough HP and a very high MP, I think you'll do just fine.
Let's hope that I'm level 99 or something.
Yeah, you're not a white mage, I hope. Because then you're fucked.
No white mages.
Because all an enemy has to do is blow on your toe and you're dead.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not too familiar with all the original character sets, so I'm not sure which I'd qualify for.
No.
We'll go with Blue Mage.
Okay. Blue Mage works. You learn enemy attacks. That works just fine.
Did we ever determine what you were, Brian?
No, we didn't assign me a character class.
It's true, we didn't.
So, pick one.
Geomancer, you're arranging things on the battlefield.
Okay. I am master of all I survey, I guess? I don't know.
And you get to wear that nice snowsuit.
I say you're master of the podcast, so engineer.
But let us steer the ship now. Let us get on track. In our last episode, as I mentioned in the intro, we talked about Final Fantasy 1 through 6 and all of the nostalgia that went along with that. I think we spent probably too long talking about Kefka.
Good 5-10 minutes.
I think the guys here are just gay for Kefka.
Are you kidding me? I mean, look at what he does. He succeeds in what he does. But that was last episode. I'm not going to drag that.
Most successful villain ever.
I'm not going to drag that discussion into here. We're going to go and pick up where we left off. We're going to begin with Final Fantasy VII. After Nintendo decided, well, it wasn't Nintendo's decision, to part ways with Square. Actually, Square, when they were originally making Final Fantasy VII, I don't know how well known this is, but originally Final Fantasy VII was supposed to be a Super Nintendo game.
A Super Nintendo game?
Yes, it was. Development began in 1994. It was originally intended to be a Super Nintendo game because the PlayStation hadn't come out yet.
I did hear that somewhere.
As I heard the development, whether it's true or not, was originally for the SNES CD supplement that never manifested.
I think you're partially right. I know that once the Nintendo 64 came out, Square decided to see what they could do and release Final Fantasy VII on the N64. However, what ultimately happened was because the N64 cartridges did not have the storage capacity that a CD-ROM had, Sony ended up winning out.
So Nintendo... Oh, sorry. Nintendo was going to have... It was going to have a CD-based component, kind of like Sega CD?
The backstory for that was that Nintendo was collaborating with Sony to make a CD upgrade for the SNES, but then they decided halfway through development, or more than halfway through development, that the cost was too high and they didn't believe CDs were going to catch on. Sony took what they'd made, finished it off, and that became the PlayStation.
Aha, okay.
And that, the whether it's entirely true or not, because they've never actually come out and said this, the original development for the game was supposed to be for the SNES CD. When that got canceled, they went to N64, but once Sony put it out as the PlayStation, they went back to what their original idea was.
Interesting.
So, that's the story, and then it ended up being released in Japan January of 1997. And then it got released 8 months later in the United States, September of 1997. It was the first Final Fantasy game to be released in Europe, of all places. So think about that. Europe, the UK, and the rest of the European continent had not seen 1 through 6.
I did
Did
not.
it also get released in Europe sometime in let's see here, sometime in '98 or '99?
Yeah, I mean, as was the case then. I mean, now the planet is kind of spoiled. Now we have worldwide releases, but Europe used to always get shafted.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that constantly happen.
Actually, Andy, Final Fantasy VII came out in Europe 2 months after the US release.
Wow, fastest released ever.
Yeah. So, it was then made available pretty much around the globe by the end of November of 1997. So, you could tell that Square and Sony were pushing this game. And as I had mentioned toward the end of the last episode, this was one of probably a handful of games that sold the PlayStation. This was one of those games that made you want to buy the system.
It also was a gateway game into RPGs in general. It brought it into the public consciousness in a way that no other RPG that I can think of, at least here in America, had.
Well, you mean
You might
Chrono
feel like-
Trigger and the like didn't bring anything in?
Not really. You have to keep in mind, in the SNES days, RPGs were still kind of viewed as a little niche category. Final Fantasy VII really took the RPG genre and launched it into the mainstream gaming.
Oh, so this is why Final Fantasy VII's got that big reputation.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, it's the only Final Fantasy game I remember. I remember when the PlayStation... I remember seeing ads on television for it.
I remember humping the screen when those ads came out. I was like, are you serious? Like, this is what PlayStation looks like?
Oh my god, pre-rendered backgrounds.
And now here's where we see the start of Sony slowly going for what they've done now in 13 and 14 with visuals, plot, well, maybe, but visuals.
Yes, it was the first game in the series to use 3D graphics and pre-rendered background. It was, as I already mentioned, first game in the series to be made for a non-Nintendo console, and it became an instant commercial and critical success. And it ended up being the highest, and still to this day, highest-selling Final Fantasy game of all time. With pretty good reason. I mean, this was the first Final Fantasy I played. This is what got me into the series.
It's the first one I even remember seeing. Like, I wasn't even aware of the previous incarnations until I saw 7.
I'm not surprised it's the highest selling, considering that to this day, the original Final Fantasy VII is still sold. And that's... You don't have many games that basically have never really been out of print.
It's also
it goes for high prices.
It's also the only Final Fantasy that they've ever talked about doing a remake of, I believe. There was that whole thing about how Final Fantasy VII was what Final Fantasy 13 was going to be, or something like that.
The idea, well, there was a tech demo showing off the potential of the PlayStation 3 in terms of the graphics, and the tech demo is basically just an updated version of the intro for Final Fantasy VII.
Also known as a cock tease.
Other Final Fantasies,
totally.
Other Final Fantasies have gotten remakes. I mean, FF4 had a full-fledged remake.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. They took a lot of the games that were on the original SNES and put them on the DS, right?
Yep, they remade Final Fantasy IV completely. They did a remake of Final Fantasy 1. I think that's basically it for full remakes, but a lot of them also had ports.
Final Fantasy 3 was technically a remake because it was originally on the NES and then got moved to the DS.
Yes, which was, I mean, the first time that Final Fantasy 3 was actually released in this country was on the DS, so...
Alright, so I try and steer us back on topic as we go...
Yeah, we're heading back into the classic...
Hitting the brakes!
Heading back into the classic era.
Let's hit the brakes and get on that motorcycle and get on the highway to 7.
And, well... And this game in particular, I mean, I was intrigued because my stepbrother had played a demo of Final Fantasy VII, and the demo was from the beginning of the game to the first boss.
Actually, if I remember correctly, I think it's still one of the few games in which they put like a guide right in the little booklet that came with the game. At least that's what I remember being most distinct about so far.
You mean like a little strategy guide?
Yeah, up to the first boss.
Yeah, I had that too. I remember that. Actually, I think 8 had one also, now that I think about it.
I know 7 did. I know 8 did. 9 had one, but that was when Sony, or I'm sorry, not Sony, Square tried to pimp their website, which had the strategy guide for 9 out of it. You had to put money into it, which was
And I'm watching my stepbrother play this game, and I was intrigued because at that time RPGs were still pretty new to me back in 97. I think at that point I had played only just a handful, like Pokemon Red and Blue. I think I had played Super Mario RPG by that point. And seeing this game, I was like, whoa, I am intrigued. Why are we in this dystopian-looking place? This is not the happy, cheery game that Pokemon and Mario RPG are. This is really, really dismal. There's, I mean, the game opens up with a flower girl on the streets.
You see a flower girl in an alleyway, and then you see cars streaming by, and industry and science going on, which is definitely not something you see in a Final Fantasy game.
And you see that gigantic Shinra tower coming up.
Say, coming from an old school Final Fantasy person, when I first saw 7, first of all, my mind was blown just from the visuals, but what really sold me on the game was I saw all of this kind of stuff that they were starting in 6, themes and stuff that evolved into 7, the Magitech, the technology being brought off, the destroying nature and the environment, just themes that came up in 6 that they just took farther in 7.
It was basically like I was saying in the last episode, if 6 was steampunk, 7 was cyberpunk. It was Definitely. That whole exactly that kind of post-dystopian kind of world where it was like everything around you was just machinery, and that's kind of what pulled me into, because I was like, well, this is different,
Very different, and unlike most RPGs, at least in the definitely in the classic series, where you have some exposition before you head out into the world, Final Fantasy VII, after the wonderful 2-minute opening intro, right into battle. You have no idea what the hell's going on.
Yeah, you have on the train, you move 5 steps, and you see 2 guards run at you and go, "Hey, stop! Who are you? Battle!"
And you're like, "Who am I?"
Blow the place up.
Yeah,
and if I remember correctly, epic music to go along with the battle, of course.
Yes, you had the entire opening intro, which as soon as I first heard that, I'm like, this was unlike any video game music I had ever heard up to this point. And I was honestly curious, and I was like, okay, why is this game starting off the way it is? This isn't happy. This isn't bright and cheery. This isn't, choose a Pokemon to start with you on your quest.
I've started playing adult games.
And I was hooked. The rest was it. I could not put it down. And even though I had no idea what I was doing, I was not familiar with RPG conventions at all. The hell, yeah, you had a little bit of this in Pokemon and Mario RPG, but what's this, leveling up shit?
Most, as I say, and for comparing it to some of the old school RPGs, you have very unique characters in 7 compared to the old school ones. You don't have the knights and the princesses. You have Barrett with his gun arm, as trying to take down the government. You have
Mr. T.
Yeah, yes, totally Mr. T with a gun on his arm. But I mean, the characters were so different than anything else you'd seen up until then.
You had Cloud with his gigantic spiky blonde hair.
And the sword that is as tall as he is.
Well, yeah, but if you watched anime, that was there before.
Yeah, well, yes.
Yeah.
He had total anime hair.
Yeah. You had Barrett, the machine gun on an arm, Mr. T knockoff.
Tifa, which came
Tifa, yeah, fighting hand to hand. One of the first characters you really see doing that outside of like Yang and Sabin.
And
If I recall, the first female to do that.
Definitely.
That wasn't like a game where you would choose your party members or your class members. Like, it was the first female character that actually came into the game like, no, I just use my fist.
So yeah, I punch shit.
Well, then again, Barrett punches shit and then fires at them.
Yes, he does.
Advantage Barrett.
Yes, with an unlimited stream of ammunition. So yes, advantage Barrett. And as you continue on to the game, you just find out just how complex and involved this story is. And that flower girl you saw in the opening movie suddenly becomes a major plot twist. A plot point, I should say. We get to the plot twist later on, toward the end of the first disc.
Yeah.
That's the thing with that twist there. And I don't know whether we want to give the spoilers away now or later, but I remember being so upset that I wanted to just go after what happened there. And then 4 discs later, when I actually get the chance to take revenge, in this case of, okay, he's just final boss. We gotta kill him now. For some reason, I lost all the emotion that had been built up at that point.
Okay, that's not a bad assessment, but I mean, in the meantime. And I don't think we have to worry about spoilers in the PlayStation era. Final Fantasy VII is 15 years old. Spoilers, we've reached the statute of limitations on spoilers.
Yeah.
Rosebud was a sled.
I read the Bible.
Damn it! Now I can't watch the movie.
I read the Bible. I know what happens at the end. The devil did it. Move on. But at the end of the first disc, we have probably one of the most iconic plot twists and scenes, probably to this day. It was the first time I had actually wept while playing a video game.
You mean when Kefka murders Sephiroth and takes over as the primary villain?
That's hilarious.
I was the original winged angel, you fuck. You're cramping my styles. And you have mommy issues. I just want to destroy everything. Go away.
See, everybody else I know cried at the scene and all the rest of that, and I was one of the later ones of my friends to play the game because I didn't have money to buy it. So I had that part spoiled for me.
Oh,
I did too.
That had been spoiled me for ages since I didn't get into Final Fantasy VII for many years after its initial release. And when Sephiroth goes and plunges his sword through Aerith there... Well, actually, question. How is it pronounced? Aerith or Aerith?
Depending on which country you're playing in.
Memory serves, the original Japanese, it's Aerith. Or I think it's Aerith.
In the Japanese version, it's the TH ending. In the US, you have the S ending. So either name's acceptable.
I believe most go by Aerith now. At least most Final Fantasy fans I know of.
But whatever the case, when she dies in the most bloodless impaling ever.
Yeah, gotta keep it PG somehow.
Yeah,
the ESC ain't gonna be kind of on your butt about that.
Yeah, we still had to keep it a T rating. So we had the most bloodless, cleanest impaling ever. But yeah, it was the first time that I had ever played a video game, and I started crying. I'm like, whoa, this is a video game. I'm not supposed to weep.
One of the first times I can remember seeing a burial of some kind for your dead companion.
Well, probably I think sold it for me. Like the entire scene wasn't that. I mean, the scene was very moving by itself, but it was the music that I think that sold it.
Yes.
Combination of the audio and visual.
Yeah,
two elements working together.
Yeah, like this is something that like we see a lot in movies, like the audio strengthening the visual, but we really hadn't seen anything like that up to that point in time in a video game until. I mean, the closest I could think of would probably be the opera scene in 6, but 7 I think is when you really need to tie down. Like you need to, like you have that moment of, wow, this is very deep.
Well, that's just one of Uematsu's trademarks, though. He's very good at that.
Yeah, I mean, it also is just like the theme of the song too. Is like it's not a very down or emotionally depressing song. It's actually meant to be a more of an uplifting thing.
Yes, I agree.
She was an uplifting character, so they basically just slowed her song down, and they did it where they timed it with the bounce of the materia that fell off of her, and it was like, oh, it was so heavy.
Yeah, like you didn't really notice it either at the time, like that the materia bounce was timed to the beat of the song.
Yes.
You know, I wonder about this. For anyone who had not been spoiled about what happened to Eris at this point, if they went, okay, I've been leveling her up. What? No, I just put all that time into her, and now she's dead.
I'm sure.
Someone get a phoenix down.
Funny though how Phoenix Downs can revive a dead character in battle, but somebody gets impaled and suddenly Phoenix Downs are like, nope, no good.
Maybe this is me, but I look at Phoenix Down as more like smelling salts. But the other thing is, you kind of have to, like, if you were paying attention, you kind of had to know something was going on because you get Ares' ultimate weapon, like, in the middle of Disc 1.
That's what I was about to say, is you can get her ultimate weapon
true.
and you can get her final limit before you lose her. And for anybody else, it'd be like, wait a second, are we going to lose her?
Well, you knew over the course of Disc 1 that she was a very central character.
Yeah.
As the story progressed, but you weren't expecting die.
I liked that they tied that materia in that fell off of her. Then at the end of the game you find out, oh, wait a second. White materia.
We shouldn't have just left that lying at the bottom of the pool.
It's like, oh yeah.
Like I this is just me thinking, like, I would think that you would want to keep a memento of hers around, and if it isn't like her ribbon or
especially, I mean, it's a materia. You know what that's used for in game. It teaches you magic. Wouldn't you go, ooh, this is her materia. I've never seen this before. Maybe we should see what it is.
Maybe we should hold on to it because if something else, she thought it was an important memento, and she obviously liked it, so let's keep it in memory of her.
Instead, Cloud goes, lets her die at the bottom of the pool, walks away, and continues being emo for the rest of the game, saying, why did I let her die?
Okay, be honest, Ronnie, though. We're thinking, why would you didn't hold on? We're thinking that now. 15 years ago, were you thinking the same thing?
Me, personally, I was wondering, like, okay, can I get that white materia now? Because it's kind of cool. Like, most of the material we've seen up to that point was red, yellow, blue, purple, or green.
I'll be completely honest. I didn't know that was the magical materia we were going to need at the end of the game. But when it was falling off of her, I was going, we probably shouldn't let that go in the water. Hey, guys... When are you going to go grab that?
Don't let it go in the water. Don't let it go in the water. Someone stop Sephiroth from stabbing her. Nope. Everyone just sitting there frozen solid. God damn it. Why is it...
mention how much emphasis was placed on it. I think it's just concentrated on that white material for an entire minute through the whole death scene.
Yeah. But then again, I won't just blame Cloud. I mean, Sephiroth should honestly have gone, maybe I should cut that materia in half. Because at that point, I'm pretty sure he knew there was a white materia. He just didn't know she had it.
Well, be that as it may, while we're on the subject of materia, this was the first game, I think, where you had a separate system of learning abilities. In the previous 6 games, you learned abilities through, some of the games through job classes, yes, but you gained new abilities through leveling up.
It was actually pretty much the same as 6.
Yes. 6, I mean, okay, 6 had it be only magic and something spells. 7, it was everything other than basic attack and using an item.
Right.
Well, it took it a little bit farther than 6 did, but 6 also had that that each Esper gave you a different bonus when you leveled up.
Yes.
So you'd put certain ones on to, upgrade your stats.
But I think this one further.
Yeah. It definitely took it further.
Which was a nice addition, I felt. You had to determine, because if I remember correctly, equipping a materia on your character came with certain bonuses, but there were also some consequences. Like, max HP up 2%, but max MP down 2%.
Yeah. The other stats, the initial ones were like higher magic, lower attack. The more powerful ones would have larger benefits and larger negatives. I think memory serves, the Neo Bahamut one was like plus 20% magic, minus 20% HP.
Yeah, something along those lines. So which I thought was actually a very good, and there were some weapons where if you equip materia to them, then their leveling up would double. Because you gained abilities.
You also had the materia fusion slots. Like if you had the 2 materia slots linked together, then sometimes the abilities can fuse into a new one. Like
I abused
4x
that.
attack could 4x mug. I think.
Oh yeah, the multiple of the X's. Those everybody abused the hell out of. I'm pretty sure.
I was constantly searching for new ones, like, okay, if I mix this and this, like, am I really... Yeah, this is going to work out really well for me.
And, just progressing through the story. Now, full disclosure, the first time I played it, I had no idea about Vincent and Yuffie at all. I did not know those characters were in the game, because they are optional.
Oh, I totally scoped out Yuffie.
I had no idea. I had no idea they even existed until well after I'd finished the game. When one of my friends asked me, "So did you get Vincent and Yuffie?" And I'm like, "Who?"
Yeah, I didn't know Vincent the first time I played, but oh yeah, I ran across Yuffie completely randomly, and she is long since my favorite character of the game.
Of course.
Thank you. Somebody else likes her. Thank you.
That's not surprising.
Yuffie was fun.
That's not surprising coming from Ronnie. I mean, he likes his characters to be very sprightly and crazy. And I mean, come on, he likes Selfie for fuck's sake.
There's nothing wrong.
There's nothing wrong with Selfie. Thank you.
and Riku, I like Riku as well.
Oh yeah, that's you. That's you in a nutshell. So. As the game progressed and the story got more and more complex, we have, the Shinra Corporation getting in on the act, and I remember as you acquired more characters, later on you pick up Red 13, who's a fun character. One of my favorites, though, was the next playable Sid.
Mm-hmm. The chain-smoking... He's still an airship mechanic, oddly enough, but...
Of course.
It's also a modern-day Dragoon, though.
Yeah.
Yes, the chain-smoking or toothpick-chewing if you're playing Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
Is it just me, or did I imagine, the only way he could get away with him being a Dragoon is if he had rocket boots on the entire time?
Maybe.
Well, he's an engineer. That's not too far-fetched.
You could do that.
And... then later on, listen, what do I got? Cloud.
Kate Sith.
Kate Sith, who I barely used.
The traitor.
Nobody
Yes.
used Kate Sith.
Important character, yes, but I almost never.
I think you'd be hard-pressed to find someone that actually did use them, just because I feel like that, by that point in time, your party was pretty well determined in terms of, who you were going to use.
I used, at least my first playthrough. He would get replaced by Vincent when I ended up getting him in my later playthroughs. But in my first playthrough, my main team was, Cloud because it was necessary, and then Kate, Sith, and Yuffie.
My first playthrough was Cloud, Barrett, Ares until she got kicked, and then Vincent replaced Barrett, and I think I thirled around and eventually settled on Yuffie just because I wanted a female in the party. And couldn't deal with boobs McBoobs.
Don't need too many sausages in the party.
Yeah.
Well, Tifa also had that awesome limit break, so she was in my
Yes.
party right on. Dolphin
Also, I just realized
kept
this
going.
too. This is the first game where you only have 3 party members compared to 4 or 5.
Right? Yeah, that's true.
That's a good point.
That is very true, and you could switch out party members at save points, but not in battle. This wasn't like Final Fantasy VI, where right before the final boss it tells you, "Oh, list your characters from 1 to 14." No, you had 3.
Well, that was a really cool effect, though. Being able to bring your entire party into the final battle.
Oh yes, but I remember very clearly the final battle with Sephiroth. It took me 9 attempts.
9?
9. Again, I was still very new to RPGs, so the whole concept of level grinding was completely foreign to me.
You didn't notice that, as you got down, the fights got progressively harder, and you didn't think maybe I should stop and...
Nope, never came to me. Now remember, this was 15 years ago. I was 12.
It's understandable.
Fair enough, you said you were new to RPGs. I guess I can let that one slide.
Yes.
Right. This is before you discover the secret of these super secret side bosses who are harder than all hell and make the final boss look like shit.
Oh yeah, this was long before I knew about side quests, long before knowing about level grinding. It was during this final battle that I came to the realization of maybe I shouldn't have run away from so many battles.
It took me...
Same thing happened in May.
It took me, 10 years to be able to beat the underwater weapon.
It took you 10 years to beat Emerald Weapon.
I never knew about the underwater materia. I was the first one of my friends to beat Ruby Weapon because I grinded as all hell, and I leveled up, and I did everything I should, and got all the right materia. But no matter what I did, I could never beat the underwater weapon in the original playthrough. It wasn't until a couple of years ago, playing through the game again, that I figured out how to beat the damn thing.
Oh. See, for me, this is slightly cheating, but I just spam Knights of the Round 4 times every single time.
Isn't that what everybody did?
Nope.
No.
Well, except for Brian, of course.
No, I remember very clearly the final move that I had inflicted on Sephiroth, because it's utterly laughable. My final party was Cloud, Barrett, and Sid. And the final move on the final battle was Sid's level 1 limit break, Dynamite.
Nice.
That works.
That was the final move, and it was one of those particular scenes where, and I also didn't know about the accessory known as the ribbon, so.
Ooh,
Ribbon's
like the best accessory you can get.
Yes.
Sephiroth did his 9-decade-long move Supernova, and it had killed Cloud and Barrett and left Sid standing with, I think, some very low HP, but it was enough to fill up Sid's limit break meter from nothing to full.
Sounds alright.
And final move was Sid's level 1 Dynamite, and then the battle was over. I'm like,
I win! I win!
A TNT stick marked Acme did him in, but
hey, you gotta watch out. That Acme Dynamite's pretty strong, man.
It was very strong, but yeah, I mean, I had no idea what the hell level grinding was. I would not gain a real appreciation for level grinding until Final Fantasy VIII, which we'll get to in a minute or two.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how many people went through without knowing what the game, without a strategy or anything like that, and how many of them realize that they should maybe stop and just explore the world.
Well,
I didn't get that offhand.
Neither did I. I mean, also keep in mind this was the first RPG in the first Final Fantasy game for two things. One, I remember that you had to play the game for at least a few hours before you even got onto the world map.
Yeah, I mean that is a little interesting because I think that's the only Final Fantasy really that's had such a thing occur where you spend the first 5 to 6 hours in one city and you don't come back to that city until like the middle of disc 3, I think.
Something like that. I mean, you don't come back to it for a long time. It took you 5 or 6 hours to get onto the world map, but after that, you had a huge world.
Yeah.
You had a huge world. This was also the first Final Fantasy game to begin really the trope of characters, whether they're main characters or the main bosses, having mommy or daddy issues.
Or just emotional issues in general.
Or just being emo fucks, yes.
I would say Terra in Final Fantasy VI could be a little bit.
I would consider that a little bit of a stretch, though.
I give Terra a pass because compared to Cloud, she had her parents killed when she was literally a baby, was adopted by an insane emperor, by a power-crazy emperor, and his insane clown as a babysitter. And then when she turned 15, got a slave crown placed upon her head, and was told to go kill and pillage the entire country.
I didn't say it wasn't justified. There's a lot of emo characters in Final Fantasy that have justified reasons. I was saying I think she's a precursor to those characters. She's not anywhere near as far along as Cloud was. He was definitely the first one that brought that to the forefront, but she definitely had pretty much all of the traits associated with them, just in smaller quantities. At least in my mind, she was the prototype for what later became Cloud, and, well, I could list all of them because they're pretty much every main character since then.
Yeah, I mean, we had the whole Cloud Zack thing, and then, of course, Sephiroth with his own mommy issues. But this game was universally acclaimed up and down, and I think judging from now that we've spent 30 minutes just talking Final Fantasy VII alone, I think we all enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was excellent.
It was excellent. So
It was also. Oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
Go. I'll let you close before I head on.
I was just gonna say it was also chock full of mini games, which was pretty.
Oh,
fun.
yes.
In Golden
Chocobo.
Saucer. Hello,
Gold Saucer, Chocobo.
Golden Saucer, yes.
Yes, the Foxwoods of the video game world.
Yeah, what I don't understand is how Chocobos and Sid, and there's all of these things that transcend the games that are in all of them. Why isn't Gold Saucer in every game since then? Really? Would anybody question it? If it just popped up in 8 or it popped up in 9, it would be it's perfect.
I could have
brought it back.
Maybe not Gold Saucer proper, but an amusement, like in a city devoted solely to the entertainment industry, I guess I'd be okay with.
I mean, why the hell not? Dragon Quest has something like that in almost every game.
Yeah.
So.
Like each game's designated Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Alrighty. So.
What happens in Gold Saucer stays in Gold Saucer.
Yes. Then, after all the love and affection Final Fantasy VII got, 2 years later, we would get Final Fantasy VIII. It came out February 1999 in Japan, and it came out on September 9th, 1999, so 9999, in the USA. And the first thing...
It also happens to be how much gil it cost to buy.
This game still kept going with this whole futuristic sci-fi machine thing, the machine ideas, and elaborated on it a bit further. It tweaked the leveling up system, so once again, Square decides to get a little experimental.
Yeah. I would say, like, for me, 7, I would consider, like, steampunk or diesel punk. 8, I would say you're starting to get more in the realm of magic. magical punk, like
Magical punk.
like magic is running the technology, not a separate power source.
Magitech punk.
Yeah.
Magitech punk.
Oh.
And again, opening movie of Final Fantasy VIII sets the tone. Two guys, in battle.
Let's say 8 also single-handedly polarized the community that it built that 7 had built.
Oh yes.
In a way that I don't think any other Final Fantasy had. I mean, there were some people who didn't embrace 7, but for the most part, every Final Fantasy was pretty much embraced up until 8. Not saying whether positive or negative towards 8, but it definitely polarized the community.
I would tend to agree with that, but what do you think? What was the reasons, do you think, 8 polarized the fan base?
Squall.
I think there are a couple different reasons.
Yeah.
Cue the Cure music and the black eyeliner. Squall's coming around and he's got stuff to cry about.
Or shrug about.
I was gonna say, Squall. I mean, really, people call him whiny. He wasn't really whinier than Cloud. He just didn't have as many endearing or redeeming factors as Cloud did to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Cloud had his moments of emo-ness, but he still was a bit of a badass. Squall was just, I'm a dude with brown hair and a black leather trench coat, and my sword is a gun.
I'd say it's Final Fantasy VIII to me should have been my ideal Final Fantasy. I'm a romantic, so a love story, that's great. I'm obsessed with anything that has to do with traveling through time or time abilities, so it's got me right there. By the way, I love Chrono Trigger. So this should have been my ideal game.
Right, but the two things that killed it
turned
probably...
me off so much.
Well, first and foremost, there's the junction system, which I know everybody hates.
Oh.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, Final Fantasy VIII, granted, I've really only played 3 Final Fantasies altogether. 12, 8, and 7. 8 is still my favorite.
It doesn't feel like 8 had as much of a coherent plot. Not that the plot didn't come together, but that when you were playing it, it didn't feel like it was coming together, and it didn't feel like, especially at certain points it did, but for a good portion of the game, it didn't feel like you were being driven towards something. Like there was a clear goal in mind.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the major negatives I have for 8 is that compared to 7, where you pretty much had a very clearly defined villain for the first 5 hours, and you find out the villain's actually Sephiroth, and now then maybe 5 hours into that, now you have a vested reason for killing Sephiroth, i.e. him killing Aerith. For 8, you're kind of durdling around for the first disc and a half before you go, here's the villain, we have to defeat this specific villain. Now I have a goal.
Right,
FF7,
it takes so long.
Yeah, FF7 had Sephiroth. Met him early on, found out he was the villain, just went from there. FF6, you had Kefka. You met him towards the beginning of the game. You don't realize he's the last boss then, but he's a villain that keeps everything going the whole time. And then you find out he's the last boss. 4, you had Golbez, who ended up turning to your side before the end of Final Fantasy IV, but he was a central villain that you had to focus on and try to defeat. You had a clear villain that you were trying to work against. 8 didn't have that. Every time it came up with a villain, before you could even get involved in that villain, it turned out to be someone else. And before you could get you couldn't get emotionally invested when you keep changing the villain, or when you don't have an opportunity to interact with them.
Yeah, I mean, first you think it's Cypher, then it's Sorceress Adel, then it's somebody else, and then
Sorceress Ada, then Adele.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then it's Sorceress Adele. No way, it's someone else. No way, it's someone else. No way, it's Ultimacia.
And this is the part where you start thinking, this is the Final Fantasy that has M. Night Shyamalan involved. What a twist!
Well, at least it wasn't a tree.
Well, granted, though, you also have to think of it this way. You look at, 6 and 7, and those games kicked off with like resistance groups, and it was a lot more polarized. 8 starts off with you're just a couple of kids in a military academy.
You're a high school. You're a high school Sailor Moon. What the fuck?
Yeah, wait a minute. This is a game from Japan. Break out the girls in the miniskirts.
Of course.
Does that mean it's time to talk about selfies?
Right, girl in miniskirt.
Oh, here we go. This is going to be your first hentai Final Fantasy.
Well, they certainly had enough tentacle monsters in the Final Fantasy series.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Oh god, Marlboro, the most hated, at least for me, the most hated monster in any game.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate Marlboro.
Bad breath.
Yeah. The other main negatives I have for 8 is the junction system. In concept, it sounds really good. Like, if you look at it on paper, you think, okay, this is good. Because your spells buff your stats. Well, then you just use spells you don't ever use.
And then you realize the good spells are the ones that buff you the best, but you're going to use those.
Yeah. And then you just go on and go, like, why do I even want to use these spells to begin with? So I'm just going to be having, like, 9999 HP and auto-attacking the entire time?
That game was really, really easy to break. Like, you don't need to read a guide or anything to break it.
Like,
you just do it
even, like, you basically just gathered, magic every single time.
Yeah, you would just sit there and, like, you'd go into random battles and just draw and draw and draw and draw until it was like, okay, I got 99 of fire. Now I'm going to draw a scan.
or this was the first Final Fantasy that had the they changed it. It was no longer Cure 1, Cure 2, Cure 3. Now it was Curaga. So
Which I'm fine. They did that with the Fire Firaga. They also had the Guardian Force, the summons now called Guardian Force. You can actually make them stronger through the little mini game. Hit square a certain number of times. Don't hit square when it's covered in a red X. Little thing going on.
The boost system.
The boost system, yeah.
I think I can define right now with you guys exactly what Final Fantasy VIII's biggest problem is. I don't know about the rest of you. You can tell me what you think about this, but I don't think that without looking at a guide or looking at a character list, I could name all of Final Fantasy VIII's playable characters off the top of my head, and I've played through that game at least 4 times, because they don't have enough of a defining image in my mind.
Yeah,
and I don't care enough
have a very strong personality. I think I can name all 6. Squall, Renoa, Selphie...
Squall, Renoa, Selphie,
Zach.
yeah.
Zell.
Oh, sorry.
Irvine.
Yeah, I was going to say Gun Guy.
I was
Gun Guy.
Say Gun Guy.
Quistis, yeah.
But I mean, just apparently you guys could, but like,
I was going to call Irvine Gun Guy too, but
but I mean, every other game, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy IX, all of the old Final Fantasies, I can name the characters off the top of my head without a problem, and those games had like 2-3 times as many characters.
Yeah, we went through
because
this.
Sorry.
I'll say we did this. I did this in the previous episode with number 6. What was that? I got 12 out of 14 right.
Yeah, 12 out of 14.
He was running off the playable characters of Final Fantasy VI, and he got 12 out of 14.
I could probably do that, but I'm cheating right now because we're in the middle of playing through Final Fantasy VI again on Super Nintendo. So curses, I missed that podcast.
Well, going on your point, though, I think the reason why that happens with those characters is because it's not so much that their personalities aren't distinct, it's that they're kind of, in terms of playable characters, they're empty shells, and the only real way to utilize them is to equip them with GFs. Like, the whole basis of your leveling up is based on your summons. It's not based on the character itself.
I mean, the focus for the story, like every other game, each character had its own focus. In Final Fantasy VIII, the only 2 characters that really get any real story time are, Renoa and her boyfriend, love interest. It's just they were the only ones. Nobody else really had any. Like, what was their reason for being in the story?
Well, Zell wanted hot dogs and the girl with the pigtail in the library, and
You know what I found though as the most interesting subplot in the game? I didn't really care so much for Squall and Renoa's little, love thing. Laguna.
Yeah.
Laguna!
Oh yes.
Far and away, I think the most loved character in 8 is Laguna, because he's a soldier fighting a war he doesn't really want to fight.
If they had been able to make Final Fantasy VIII, and if they switched it around so Laguna's was the main story, and occasionally you jumped over to the other characters, just flip the way it is now, I think we'd be talking about how Final Fantasy VIII was one of the best games they've ever made.
Well, with Laguna, the problem is that, at least the way that I remember of 8 here, is that Laguna's story had an end, and it was not your positive end that you get with Squall. Laguna, he's a soldier, he fights, he loses his first love interest, comes across Rain, who takes care of him while he's injured, and then he goes back off to fight the war, find out that, oh no, Rain's dead, and you might find out that, oh, possibly he has a kid, but he never sees this kid, and now he's just mayor of the greatest city in the world.
Well,
That no one knows exist.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, my favorite character in that game was Laguna. I'm like, why couldn't the game have been more about him instead of the very bland Squall?
Mm-hmm.
well, he was
100%.
the exact opposite of Squall when you think about it. Squall was so, he was depressed and dour, and Laguna's fighting a war, and he was really upbeat.
Yeah,
Chipper
well,
and-
He's trying to keep his mates. I forget their names, but he's trying to keep their moods light. You see that he has his dark moments when he's in the bar with the.
Squall was so unsociable, and Laguna was just so sociable and open to everyone, and it was refreshing.
Well, until he got his leg cramps when he was trying to talk to what's-her-face.
Yeah, a woman he liked.
Yeah, I can't remember her name now.
Renoa's mother, we'll just go with
Yeah,
that.
Renoa's mom.
Alrighty, I think we'll take a break in the action here. When we come back, we'll continue talking about Final Fantasy VIII, and then we'll go on to Final Fantasy IX. You're listening to the PlayStation 1 era of our Final Fantasy 25th Anniversary retrospective. Right here on downloadable content, we'll be back. So along the way, as I said at the beginning of this Final Fantasy VIII discussion, they tweaked the leveling up system where it was now 1,000 experience points per level up, and also they changed the battling schematic so that enemies no longer gave you a constant amount of experience. The amount of experience you gained per battle was relative to your level. So I'm just going to throw out an example. Say you killed an imp in the beginning of the game and it gives you 100 XP. Later on in the game, if you kill that same enemy, it'll only give you, say, 10. So it meant that, yes, 1,000 experience points per level up. This is going to be a breeze. I'll be at level 99 before I get off the first disc. No.
And not to mention they've thrown the extra fact of the one who got the most XP was the person who delivered the last hit.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, that was something new. And also something new that was annoying as fuck. No XP for bosses.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was irritating.
What was up until this point your greatest source of experience points was bosses. Your first boss, and you're like, oh great, I'm going to get a lot of experience. Then it takes you to the post-battle screen. Wah, wah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you had that happen sometimes in Final Fantasy VI as well, but you would get AP for it instead of EXP.
Yes.
So it wasn't a total wash.
It was just a trade-off.
To me, the best part of FF8, the card game.
Triple Triad.
Are you serious? That's the worst part of the game, in my opinion.
Triple Triad.
And the reason it's so fucking hard. I'm a collector, so I had to get every single fucking card. That is a bitch.
Dude, I played Magic the Gathering. I know all about collecting cards, and I enjoyed playing Triple Triad. Far, far more than I enjoyed Final Fantasy IX's card game, which I think to this day I still not entirely sure all of the rules. I know enough to be able to play it and win enough to be able to finish that part of the game, and that's basically it.
Yeah, but I was like, nah, no.
I think the most annoying part about the game, well, playing the game itself is not too hard. It's when you ante up cards, and that's the part that annoyed the hell out of me. No, I lost a card. How do I get it back?
Especially when it's a card that you can't get back, or
yes.
Like any of the player names or any of the unique monsters, like you lose that card. Good luck getting it back. You gotta play that card 20 times, probably.
You use that card, it's time to reset the game and come back.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I had to do that so many times.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we get to the final... Once you finally get who the final enemy is going to be, Ultimisia. It was a very, very annoying battle, to say the least.
Not even the battle was annoying, just the lead up to said battle in the final dungeon. Like, I think the very minimum you can fight her with is attack, magic, item. I think that's it.
Doesn't she speak in Mortal Kombat-ese also, or like all of the C's or K's?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
I don't remember having much of a problem with her. It's been a while since I played it, so I can't remember the strategy, but I don't remember her being that hard.
Well, the thing with the final dungeon is when you get to it, she seals all of your abilities, and all you have is your basic attack. But you can still junction your spells to your stats, so you're still really effing powerful.
Well,
Yeah, the big mansion house.
Well, yeah. Yes, there was that. But what was annoying the most, two things that were annoying about the final battle, was A, your party was chosen at random.
Yeah.
I might have just ended up with a good party by randomly. That might be what it was.
So, you spend, all game developing, the party that you've determined.
Your main three.
And then, you get to the opening of the final battle, and it's a random 3. I'm like, oh.
That might actually be to my wife's benefit, because she obsessively effectively keeps all of the characters as close to the same level as possible. So that probably would have helped her in that situation.
Also, because again, I was still very new to RPGs, I do not recall in Final Fantasy VIII, usually when you to upgrade your weapons, you would go to a shop and buy them. There was no such thing in Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah, in 8, all you had was weapon crafting. You could not buy weapons.
No, you had to craft them.
Parts, yeah.
Yeah, and if you didn't find the weapon magazines, well, tough shit.
And which meant I didn't, which meant everybody went into that final battle with their initial weapon.
Yeah, everything was magazine-based. Because then there was Pet Pals in order to get Noah's puppy to...
Yeah, I mean, you could buy magazines, I think, after a certain point, but to craft the ultimate weapons, you had to find the weapon magazine number 1, which you could only get at one specific point in the game, and if you couldn't get it then, you weren't going to get it ever.
Also, the second most annoying part about that battle, after the random 3, was, your Guardian forces that you would spend a good chunk of the game using were now rendered useless.
Oh, yeah, the moment you saw one, nah, fuck you, kill it.
Yep, once it was a 4-part battle, after the first 2 parts, you're like, I'm going to use my Guardian force,
Kind of like in Final Fantasy X when you lose access to them at the end of the game.
Yes. So that was extremely, extremely annoying. However, luckily, at the beginning of the battle, I would use Cerberus to give everybody double and triple magic. So, because everybody still had their initial weapon, I pretty much used magic the entire way. So it would be like triple Ultima casting from every character.
Yeah. Now, also, this is also a unique situation where there's you can draw. There's how many spells in the game total? Like 30 or 40, I think.
I don't know. There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a fair number of spells, but there's one spell that you cannot get until the very last fight, Apocalypse. And the only way to get it is from drawing it from her first form, or her second form. Like her second form, you draw Apocalypse, and then you can use it right away.
Yeah, and it was just that battle took me 2 hours just from just whittling her down, whittling until finally. Then I got to her 4th form, and then she used Apocalypse on me, and I think one of the very few times I threw the controller in rage.
Yeah,
because that's an instant death.
Yeah, that's not fun. I really think that 8 was definitely one of the weaker Final Fantasies. Like I would, for me personally, 2 and 8 are like my bottom of the barrel.
I mean, I don't think that 8 deserves as much hate as it gets, because there were people like me where I was introduced with 8, not 7. My first Final Fantasy game was 8, and it does have its good points. It's just that
you were coming off 7, which had been this great game, and then you're introduced to 8, which you had so many problems. This is before internet, so there's no patches or anything. So you just come off the greatest game ever at the time, according to some people, and you're introduced to this thing, and that's probably where so much hate comes from.
Yeah, I think if it came different, if it came before 7, I don't think it would come with the backlash that it has.
I was going to say, I think that coming from back when I first played it back in the day, I thought that it was a good game, but the reason it was getting the backlash was because it wasn't as good of a Final Fantasy game. It didn't live up to the other games in the past, especially 7 at the time, and that's why it was getting so much hate. If it had been titled a different game, I think it would have been, much, much better received.
Right, 7 and 8 maybe were switched.
Keep in mind too, I say 2 and 8 are bad games. They're bad Final Fantasy games. If you compare them to the other RPGs of their time, I would still say that they're probably the best RPGs of that year.
Playing it back again a couple years ago, I'll say that I didn't I really didn't dislike it as much as I thought I was going to. I actually enjoyed myself a lot more. I guess my complaints didn't change, but in the grand scheme of things, it mattered less. I still enjoyed playing the game, and I think that's when we come right down to it. We can talk flaws and failures and successes all we want. It really comes down to, did you enjoy playing it? And it's a flawed game, but I enjoyed it.
Well, you enjoyed it, whereas I did not.
Hey, as far as Final Fantasy goes, at least it's not Spirits Within.
No, or 13.
Oh God, no! Not that not that movie. Oh.
Or not. But then we move on. Let's get out of Final Fantasy VIII and move on to a good game.
Okay. Wait, before you guys move on to Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy IX, I'm tagging out, and my wife is going to be sitting in for this game.
Oh, we have a special guest, Dejah.
Tag team.
We have a special guest. We have a special guest, Dejah.
Right, well, oh. Final Fantasy IX, that's my jam.
That's your jam. Welcome aboard, Dejah.
Hi.
Welcome aboard. I hope that you've got your bunny safely away, because it could get crazy.
She's munching on some hay in her litter box. She's good.
She's good. All right. Moving on to Final Fantasy IX. This was released in Japan in July of 2000, and it came out in the US 4 months later. And for me personally, because at this point, the only Final Fantasy games I had played were 7 and 8. I looked at 9.
You're not the only one.
I looked at 9 and I went, "What the hell?" I didn't realize it was supposed to be an homage to the classic games until much later. So
you're going, why the hell? Why can't I change my character's classes around?
Yeah.
Why is it that only Zidane can steal things? Why is it only Vivi can cast fire?
Yeah, there was a lot of, and because it was paying tribute, I'm 10 hours into the game, I'm still waiting for the game to begin. It was like 10.
Oops.
It's like 10 or 12 hours into the game. I'm like, okay, when does the game start?
It definitely didn't have a because you, I played 7, and then I kind of half played 8. I never actually beat that one. So I mean, 7 smacks you in the face and is like, "All right, bitch, we're starting this when it goes," and then 8's like, I don't know, 8. Its opening's kind of like whatever, but I really liked the beginning of 9. I mean, it might have been slow, but it was like a movie almost, like an interactive movie.
Now, granted, I haven't played 9, but I've heard that 9 was quote unquote sort of a oasis in a desert after the fiasco with 8. At least maybe that was just for veteran players who had played 1 through 6 though.
Yeah. For the main thing for Final Fantasy IX is, like Brian said, it is a throwback to the days of yore when you did not have the character customization options of 7 or 8. You had very clearly defined roles. You could not really change around what the classes did. You could kind of sort of change the combos you could do. For example, Steiner and Vivi could team up to enchant his sword with a element of fire or blizzard or something like that to do additional damage. The summons are different. They're only tied to 2 characters, Garnet/Dagger and Aiko. And it's the skills that you learn too are from the weapons, which is a little bit of a throwback to the job system in 5, I'd say.
Yeah, you had the magic point system, if I remember correctly, where you assigned magic stones to certain abilities.
Yeah. Certain abilities you assigned with magic stones. Learning new skills was learning it through equipping the weapon that it was tied to. For example, the mage staff had fire, blizzard, and thunder, but the flame staff had fire and drain.
This was actually, I guess, Final Fantasy in which you had 6 was your steampunk, 7 was cyberpunk, 8 magic tech, and now you're actually going back to fantasy.
That was
Yeah.
exactly it. It was a return to that fantasy era. From the fact that you had locked-in classes to just the overall ambiance and the storyline and everything.
Plus, there's also some also nice Easter eggs in the series as well. For example, the auction house, you can buy a rat tail.
Which, at the time, I didn't know that was an homage to 1.
See, I never even knew that. I'm learning something right now.
Yeah, edumacation. That's what this show is all about. So, but
I'm looking at your notes here, and just I'm sorry about jumping ahead here, but I'm looking at the notes, and I think I've also heard another thing about 9 is that this was like the last for a lot of the old schoolers, the last good game once you can compare it to like 10, 11, and on. And looking at the notes, maybe that has something to do with the fact that last one's completely scored by Uematsu.
I did. Yes, it was at the time. He also said that this was his favorite game, but you are right. This is the last Final Fantasy game until 14 to be completely done by Uematsu.
I gotta say, that's my favorite battle music.
He is a musical genius.
9 has my favorite Chocobo theme. I am a fan of
The ukulele.
the ukulele. Oh my god, the little work. Oh my god, I will run around to that all day.
It's certainly better than the final boss music from Resident Evil Gun Survivor, but
don't get me started.
And
I think for me,
Enjoy.
9 had a fairly stronger cast of characters. Like, I feel like their personalities were a bit more well defined. You had a more of a sense of drive in terms of wanting to rest forward with the story. By the end of disc 1, we had a clearly defined villain or pair of villains. And then, like, through the middle of disc 2, with that duo went down to a single one.
Then so you get the ass pull at the end.
Yes, and it was when I was playing this game. Once I realized, 15 hours into the game, that like, oh wait, the game's begun. And realized that I'm waiting for some epicness that I was used to from 7 and 8. Once I realized that was not going to happen, I'm like, okay, this is much more lighthearted, much more, evenly paced. I mean, it returned to, had a lot of humor in it. If you remember the whole subplot with Regent Sid, and the reason why he was turned into a frog-like creature.
Yeah.
Oglop.
Oh, Ooglup.
Oglop. Yeah.
Yeah, he get turned into a frog later on, but he started off as an Ooglup.
Well, that's what he gets for cheating on his woman. Like,
Yeah, that's what happens. You cheat on your woman, who is also a mage.
Yeah.
You get turned into a frog thing.
Yeah, you get turned into an Ooglup, and she steals your one and only working non-steam powered airship.
Yeah, so I mean, it was
or mispowered. You know what I meant.
It was just, I'm like, oh well, they had a lot of humor in there, and the romantic element was not immensely overt.
actually, what I liked about that was, and this kind of goes back to the humor, other than the other ones where it's like, oh, we're star-crossed lovers who can never be. It was like, hey, Garnet, want to like go in the back and totally fool around? Oh, you're a jerk, smack. Like it wasn't like, it was more flirtatious than anything. And then even in the ending, they never really kissed. They just kind of snuggle a little bit.
Oh, they had an epic hug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no eyes on me in this game. No, sir.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's a fade to black, and if it didn't fade to black, it was clearly going to turn rated R.
That's what you would like to think. But and then we had our main antagonist before the bait and switch of the final boss. We had Kuja, who I spent probably half the game wondering what gender
he was?
Yeah.
I would. This is definitely the introduction of the androgynous.
And
right, I was just going to say that myself.
Oh, and we have nobody but Nomura to blame.
See, I was playing the game like, let's see, I was what, like
And
15?
Quina.
Oh, I don't.
Quina was I just considered her a Jar Jar before Jar Jar existed.
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
But Kuja, I mean, I'm like, okay, what are you? Number one,
A hot Bishonen with hips.
and a purple
It was
thong.
the hips that threw me.
I'm like, wait a
I don't
minute.
know.
See, it was the shirt that only covered his chest, the skirt that didn't really go down too far, the purple and the white and the hair flicking too.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute, you're a male, but you have a female ass wiggle. What the fuck are you?
It's Japan.
Yeah,
and
it's Japan. No, Dejah, just stop right there. It's Japan. No need to elaborate any further. It's Japan. This coming from the country that sells used panties in vending machines. We're done.
I thought Kuja was pretty hot.
There were things.
That's
I
a
love
Japanese thing, though. I mean, like, guys actually get ragged on in Japan if they're too butch.
Yeah, like there is definitely a stereotype in anime in Japan's where either the male antagonist has to be androgynous, or it's got to be like a very muscly Hulk Hogan-esque figure.
This
I
is
mean,
an
look at
image
what the hell is the guy from Full Metal Alchemist?
Sergeant Armstrong.
Armstrong, yes.
Big dude.
Where like the moment like Brian, you don't know this, but he is a very muscled officer, and the moment like he moves his shirt in a certain way, it rips constantly, and he starts flexing uncontrollably.
And he's all sparkly too.
So
Yeah, Kuja's definitely the Frankenfooter of this series.
yeah, but Kuja doesn't have any of the charm, majesty, and hotness that was Tim Curry. So it's Her Majesty. Tim
I haven't
Curry.
heard him sing yet, so I don't know.
No, and you're not going to.
No, I know.
And
But speaking of androgynousness, I mean, if that's even a word, I mean, just look at the male heroes. I mean, you had Cloud, and he was kind of pretty, but he still sort of had, I guess, a masculineness. And then you had Squall, and he was very pretty. And then Zidane was a little less pretty than Squall. And then you had Titus, who's like a woman himself.
oh yes.
And then
That
what's
was
his face from 12? I don't remember his name, but
Vagina.
yeah.
As
And
a
then-
classmate of
and
mine has
then
said.
They got to the point where they just decided, well, we've already gotten to we can't go any more androgynous. We'll just make it a chick, and then we had Lightning.
It's an interesting progression. I didn't even think of it that way.
Welcome to
But yeah,
Japan.
they bring it up because he was like, man, they keep looking like chicks. I'm like, shut up, Dad, they're hot. I was like 14, so.
Yeah, that's because, and then of course because it's the same character designer, you have Squall. It's always the hair.
They're all blonde with the brunette heroine.
Yeah, they're all blonde. They all have spiky hair. They all look like Sora. They all, oh my god, they all must use the same hair product. I swear.
Well, Zidane's hair is flat for the most part. He's got on like it's more of a.
Well, that's because as I said, Final Fantasy IX was the throwback. So if you were going to have spiky androgynous character, the classic gamers would have been like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Don't you be getting all feminine in my classic games.
And to be fair, Squall was a brunette.
Yeah.
But
I think
to
hair dye, Andy.
And all the villains have silver hair.
I think for 9, the only time you really have spiky hair for any of the characters is when they go in trance mode.
Mm.
Yes, which was the form of limit break in this game.
Yeah. The main difference between trance and limit break was in 7 you could choose when you use your limit break. In 9, when you trance. That was it.
Yes, but also when you were in trance mode, you could also use your powerful move more than once.
Yes, that is true. You could use it 2 to 4 times. I think the higher level you got, the more times you could use it before you detranced.
So, and then I liked 9 once I realized what the game was about. I loved 9 until the final battle.
I have heard that with the final battle, people threw their controllers out the window.
Oh, whoa, here's the thing. My story gets better. you spend all game building up this hatred and animosity toward Kuja because for 99% of the game, he's your main antagonist. And then finally you get to him, and you have the Dark Messenger theme playing, and the battle, and the thing, and the music, and it's all well and good. And then you beat him, and you're like, yes, I just beat the game. But that battle was a little bit too easy. And then suddenly this blue blob shows up, by the name of Necron, and starts spouting up some nonsense like, I am the life and the death, and I'm going to use Grand Cross on you, and inflict every single status known to mankind on you, and go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
I actually lucked out and defeated it on the first try because
So did I, though.
I had, oh crap, what was it? Everybody had float for some reason.
And
I don't remember giving it to them.
Auto
They
float.
did. Yeah, and also, I think it was Vivi or Zidane had that auto resurrect, and everyone was wiped out. And then one of them, I'm like, oh man! And then one of them got up. I'm like, no, yes! And they were entranced. And I was like, woohoo! I'm the king. It was all luck.
Oh, and as soon as I saw Grand Cross and seeing what happened, I'm like, wow, you're part Marlboro.
See, this is something that I've learned after many years of Final Fantasy playing. Always bring someone to the final boss with a ribbon equipped, preferably two.
Yes, so... But it just... And then Necron came in, and I'm like, oh, well, who the fuck are you? I have no time to get angry at you. You didn't do anything. The guy in the purple thong all game was causing all the ruckus.
Don't forget about Garland.
Yeah,
Because I was missed that suddenly he came in, and he was supposed to be, over Kuja. I was like, screw you. Whatever.
Yeah, the main reason I think for Necron was he was more so the throwback to the Final Fantasy 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's exactly what I'm thinking of. Like Golbez and Zemus.
Yeah, Zeramus and Zemus, and the Void and Cloud of Darkness. I consider Necron to be those types of villains because his goal is not really to rule the world; it's to unmake the universe. So yeah, you kind of just need to kill him because if you don't, bad things are going to happen.
But at the end of the day, even if it was a throwback, an ass pull is an ass pull.
Yes, I'm not saying the ass pull is good. I'm just
justified.
Saying, yeah, I'm just explaining why they did the ass pull.
Yes.
I understand that controllers were broken and thrown.
Oh, I'm sure they were. I mean, I didn't have really a problem. One of my favorite things about 9 though was the mini card game. It was they changed the name. It was called Tetramaster.
Sounds like an early Nintendo console.
It does. And some of the characters I really, really loved. I liked Steiner.
Vivi is still my favorite character.
Vivi the Black Mage. Oh,
Vivi the Black Mage is probably one of the better characters in recent memory that they've made.
I just want to hug him so much.
The only thing I understand, again, I haven't played the game, but I don't really care about spoilers, is that I understand that Vivi starts out really awesome, but by the end of the game, he's kind of mediocre, not nearly as good as he was in the beginning.
That's more so to deal with the fact that as you get in higher levels, you quickly start realizing that auto-attacking is actually probably better than using magic. Even though magic is a guaranteed 9999, the animation cycle causes the villain to attack before you can cast again. So that's kind of a bad thing. Whereas with auto attack plus auto haste, you can basically do 10 to 12k per 19999 magic.
Is this, out of curiosity, and getting ahead here, but is this probably the start of where you see the problem that I've heard a lot of people talk about what happened with 12, where the game plays itself?
Not really.
Not really. There's still a fair bit of thought process involved with 9. You kind of had a time when characters would heal, or when you could use, or what trance skill you would use for a particular moment. I mean, sometimes for example, with Zidane, the moment you trance, you're just well, just choose the most expensive magic and B skill you have, and it's probably going to be 5 seconds of animation, then followed by a 9999.
But I mean, overall, I really enjoyed the game. It was very well received by the fans of the classic series. Those fans who had jumped into the series with 7 and 8 were probably like, huh?
Here's the funny thing. All right, so you know how forever and ever and ever and all time this is going to happen, people go, dude, what's your favorite Final Fantasy? Well, back then, in like maybe 2001, so like the game had been out for a year or two, people, asked me, what's your favorite Final Fantasy? And ever since then, I've said 9. And you know what I used to get as a response? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm like, what?
Really? I'd hear that with 8. I wouldn't think you'd hear that with 9.
See, I had enough friends. See, amongst our group of friends, it was kind of split. We had a couple people who loved 8, didn't really like 7, didn't like,
People who
Brian,
loved
Cat. Cat loved Chrono Cross and Final Fantasy 8, and those are the 2 games that generally weren't well received. Everyone I know who loves 8, I'd go, did you play any others? They'd go, no, it was my first one. I'd go, okay, that's why.
Yeah, I mean, after 7, 8, and 9, then I went back and went 1 through 6.
There was definitely a split, too, for a while, where, like, you had 2 different types of Final Fantasy fans. You had the 7 through 9 crowd, and then you had, like, the ones who were like, oh, well, I'm going to play, I started at 1, or I played these ones and then went back.
And, I mean, you got what you got, but I enjoyed 9, and now that we have spent an hour and a half on these 3 games...
I would say most that's devoted to 7, though, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, but still, we've gone an hour and a half, and we still have many more games to discuss, so we're going to...
I don't think you're going to talk a lot about 11 through 14.
I don't
10
think...
will probably have a lot of time.
Well, we'll find...
14, you guys will have a good laugh.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the discussion for Final Fantasy 14 is just... move on.
Can I make one more comment about 9?
Yes, you can.
Does anyone else want to know how I Want to Be Your Canary ended?
No. I imagine they got together.
I really wanted to know how that little play ended.
I think you actually, through like dialogue with Dagger, you find out that they it's basically Romeo and Juliet.
That's what I figured.
Although, speaking of Dagger, I forgot that she had a code name for the thing because I always just changed it back to Garnet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Princess Garnet. Don't call her Princess Garnet. Like, alright. No one complained.
Yeah. So, alrighty. So now that we've discussed the PlayStation era on our second half, we're gonna.
Well, technically, it's all PlayStation.
PlayStation 1 era.
Thank you.
PlayStation 1 era, alright, if we're going to go that picky. We're going to get into the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3 era of Final Fantasy. We'll be back.